we made you a promise in the beginning of the show. We told you that we're going to be hosting a man who is larger than life. He has paid his dues. He's done a lot for this country in various spheres of our socioeconomic lives. And now I'm going to give you the hint. He used to be the host of this show. In fact, he started it, was part of those who conceptualized it, and he's been able to hold the fort for 23 years. Maybe I can say it's unprecedented. And so, as I did indicate when his name came up, that Ghana wanted him to serve in a different capacity, he didn't hesitate at all. And so he took up the position as the Chief Executive Officer of a very, very, very critical and very important state institution without whom Ghana perhaps would struggle big time. In fact, he manages an institution that also manages what I'll call Ghana's economic mainstay, and I'm talking about COCO. And so the man himself is here, your own brother, friend, and a colleague, Dr. Randy Abbey. He's the Chief Executive Officer. Let me repeat it again. He's not a host of Good Morning Ghana anymore. He's not a Chief Executive Officer of Ghana COCOBOD. He's here to, talk to Ghanaians about some very, very important issues that Ghanaians must know, because there's a lot of noise. And one of the things Randy can't stand is the noise. He wants the substance, the truth, the fact. And that's why he's here. Doc.
Yes, Moro.
And good to have you join us on the show today.
Thanks.
I don't know how the feeling is like, because usually when you're here, Charlie, you're going to treat Ghanaians to some intellectually stimulating, intelligent, and thought-provoking conversations. Now you're on the other side. I don't know how the feeling is like.
Well, first of all, I think that thanks for having me, and I'd like to take the opportunity to wish the Finance Minister a happy birthday.
Today's his birthday. Today's his birthday.
Yes.
Hey.
So,
Dr. Kasselatu Forcing.
Atu is forcing.
Is it autonomics?
Yes. So today is his birthday. So happy birthday to you.
Oh, happy birthday to you, Dr. Atu Forcing.
All right. Okay, so I've never sat here before.
Really?
Never.
Yeah, obviously.
Yes,
obviously.
I've never sat here before, but it's 7 months already.
Yes.
I didn't think that I would be in this studio this early, but of course duty calls. I realized that you guys are still keeping some memories of me. You've not changed the set.
See you. It's called work in progress.
But it feels good.
In the pipeline.
It feels good to be back again, and it's good to see all the beautiful faces. Many of the people who helped me run this show for over 2 decades, and so getting back in here is quite nostalgic, and it feels good to be back again. And deservingly, I'm on this seat, which only confirms that I've actually left that seat.
The other seat.
And, congratulations for getting the opportunity to host the show. And the feedback I get also indicates that you're doing a great job. And so congratulations, and I can only wish you the very best and hope that you take the show some notches higher. Right.
Thank you very much. And I also want to thank your I'll call her maybe your special assistant when you're here. She was more than a producer. She was more like your special assistant.
Annie,
yes. And the rest of the crew for making this possible.
Annie was managing me.
She was your manager.
Yes.
Manager Bakope.
Yes, producing me, sitting in for me, doing her own Monday edition of Good Morning Ghana, and getting involved in all manner of things. She virtually tried to be my diary and to manage my life and my movement and even things beyond Good Morning Ghana, But I really enjoyed working with her, and she's a great person.
On this note, maybe you may have to appeal to her to manage me too. She's not managing me.
Okay.
So I'm giving you feedback.
Maybe you must find a way to get her to want to manage you.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll do that. And I'm sure that you share some tricks.
Yes.
As to how to go about it.
Yes.
Having known her for many years, And but before you came here, there was just on a lighter side. We'll get to this. We'll get into what I call brass tacks. But your very good friend, Tornado.
Yes.
He asked a very interesting but very funny question when you came. He said,
Yes.
Charlie, make I put you for opposition or make I put you for government? I didn't even know the seats, apparently had been divided into, government and opposition.
Okay. I didn't know that. The only thing I knew was that there were particular persons, for example, COCOBOD.
Yeah.
Was more of like I'll put it this way, like a ritual for him.
Yeah.
So he starts with a particular sitting position, and that should be permanent for him.
Okay.
So if this is where he sits, he would want to sit there every day.
Okay.
Every time he's on the show.
Okay.
That I know.
Okay.
Yes, but I really didn't know about this.
Opposition.
No. Because sitting here, I'd never realized that. The only one I knew about was that COCOBOD likes to sit at a particular place. So if this is his seat, he has a small table with the documents, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And I must confess that I think that your decision to again, which is not surprising because you're a man of ideas and innovations and things. But I think your decision to set the Monday aside for more like a women forum has really turned out to be a game changer. Now I've seen other media houses trying to copy it. So, like we say it in our local, how do you call it, pidgin. See, the time we think, we thought, even now some people they think, it's turned out to really be a great idea.
The Good Morning Ghana concept really has over the years become the template for all TV and radio shows. Honestly, something that I picked up from GTV, then GBC TV.
Yeah.
And they had this newspaper review, but it was something short, and for a person like me, I didn't think that I got enough from it. And I thought that, look, there were many people like me who wanted beyond just the 5-10 minutes and wanted an in-depth analysis, not just what the newspapers were talking about, but what was actually the news.
Right.
And that is what led me to develop Good Morning Ghana.
Okay.
And I had a discussion with Tala Fatal, and initially he was skeptical as to whether I was going to succeed or not, but later on he agreed that we should do it. And so myself and Edgar Redu, we had a lot of discussion about it, and I decided to then start a show. And then I decided to rely on my own network. Okay. So you'd realize that many of the people in my network were those who I started a show with, and then the show just blew, and almost everybody of repute as far as the space is concerned has been through the show. And like I said, over the years it's become the template. Early days we were taken to media commission and all that.
Yeah.
By print packs on the newspapers, because they thought that we were going too deeply into the issues and it was going to affect their newspaper sales. It was a divided front. There were others who also thought that no, that was also marketing their newspapers and all that. But eventually, it prevailed, and I'm happy when I watch around and I listen around and I see that a lot of the content on radio and TV is structured along the Good Morning Ghana concepts.
Right.
I'm happy that at least we've been able to also provide something which is of importance as far as information dissemination and analysis is concerned. And so it gladdens my heart that I've also contributed my bit. It was time to move on, and by the grace of God, I've moved on. I also hope that by the special grace of God, we'll also be able to chalk some successes in the new endeavor, and then move on to where God wants us to take us to. Yeah.
I think I would congratulate you for two things. For being a trailblazer, number one, and also secondly, for taking up this new appointment. So there's a new phase in your life, and we absolutely have no doubt that just as you've done with all the other things that you've done in your life, football, media and everything, you do the same at COCOBOD. But just on the lighter side of things, when your appointment came up, someone said, but who is Randy? He's just a presenter. He's a sports administrator. Why COCOBOD? COCOBOD is too sensitive, it's too technocratic for an ordinary or for a presenter. In fact, you are not even a member of the NDC. So why would a party give you such a sensitive in such an important role, such as COCOBOD? I'm sure you've heard all of that because I know your ears are always on the ground. Maybe you may have the opportunity to respond to some of this.
I mean, sometimes I heard some of those things, I read some of those things, but there are varied interests when some of these things come up. There may be those who were coming from a genuine point of concern. I mean, looking at the strategic nature of COCOBOD and really not knowing a lot about me. I mean, the point is that I'm not one of the people who goes around wearing all his roles and titles, on his sleeve. I remember that after my doctorate in 2019, it took about 6 months for me to agree for Metro TV to put a title on the screen, and so there are a lot of people who do not know me beyond what they see.
Right.
There are people who do not even know that this entire media conglomerate was being managed by me. And proud to that, I was chairing the board. And proud to that, I had been on the board. There are people who didn't know that. There are people who didn't know that I was serving on many private sector boards and chairing some of them. Because I don't go around, saying those things. But the truth of the matter is that His Excellency the President is somebody who's known me for over 30 years. So if there's somebody who really knows me and knows what I'm capable of doing, it's His Excellency the President. And obviously in this second term, he is not in to joke, he's not in for games, he's in for business, he's in to make sure that he's able to reset the country and deliver on his promises to the people. And of course, in that regard, he's obviously going to put together a team that he believes can deliver. And so, yes, there might be people who genuinely, because they do not know a lot about me, might think that, oh, this is a kind of a risk. But there are those who also will do it not out of a genuine concern, but for many other reasons. And so you all take them in your stride. And those things should rather motivate you and make you even do much better. I meet people every day who, on the basis of what they've seen or heard in the last few months, have told me that, oh, I was one of the people who thought that it wasn't, but now, I take back my words, or I eat back my words and all that. But for me, really, it's not a big deal. I mean, I know myself very well, and like I said, His Excellency the President knows me better than most people, and so we just need to focus on the job. It's not an easy task, so we need to focus on it, work together with my team, a team that we're building at COCOBOD. I mean, COCOBOD has a lot of expertise that we can rely on, and we've also brought in some people to blend in and then put together that team that we believe will be able to deliver. And so my focus really is on how we'll be able to turn around COCOBOD. At the end of the day, the delivery will vindicate the appointment. Right. Yes. And I think that so far it's been difficult, but I think that we're pushing, and by the special grace of God, we'll be able to deliver.
And that's why you're here, actually, to tell us what the COCOBOD story is and what you inherited or what was bequeathed to you, and how far you've come in dealing with some of those challenges that have come up. But again, but Annie, before I even ask my next question, is it possible to appeal to the management of Metro TV to please dash us some extra 30 minutes? This man is a very busy man. To get him back here, we may struggle. So I beg, 30 minutes. We beg. Anyway, so just on the lighter side again, Randy, how has life...
I feel very weak. I feel very weak.
We'll take it easy.
7 months ago, I could give you 1 hour.
Yeah.
7 months ago, I could give you an extra 1 hour.
I know.
Now I can't give you even 1 second.
Oh, Charlie, this is the difference between power and authority.
You have power,
time
changes.
Time changes. Okay, so one of my technical guys, I should say, such is life. But anyway, but there's power somewhere. We'll see how we can leverage on that power.
Yes.
But Randy, how has life been for you? I mean, you have played in the private sector for decades. You've built businesses, you've employed a lot of people, you have managed a media empire such as that of Ignite and so on and so forth. Now you find yourself in a politically sensitive institution such as COCOBOD. How are you transitioning? Because I've never really known you as a politician, strictly speaking, where you're wearing party t-shirts and going for party blah blah. I mean, your sympathies may lie somewhere, which is fine, and it's normal. How has life? Because you see, now you find yourself in a place where you have to deal with party food soldiers, you have to deal with the politics. How have you adjusted in the last 6 months?
Well, I think,
and because of, again, people's entitlement mentality, that anybody or everybody who's been given a position by the president, there are some people who feel they must at all costs benefit from that position, whether rightly or wrongly. How are you transitioning?
I think that it's something that I've been dealing with for years.
Okay.
It's something I've been dealing with for years. The only thing is that the scale is much different now. And some of these things are to be expected. Everybody believes that their one vote is what provided a victory and also gave you the opportunity. And so you would have all that kind of pressure. I mean, so the pressure comes, you try as much as possible to deal with what you can do. You cannot deal with everything. And so you try as much as possible to deal with those that you can deal. And those that you cannot, you let it slide. So there are people who will be happy and there are people who will not be happy, because at the end of the day, I will not be able to deal with everybody's issues. And I'll be able to try my best to do what I can do. What I've also learned is that you also need to structure. Otherwise, it becomes very intrusive and you will even not be able to do any work at all. Because from Monday to Friday, you have people coming in there and everybody believing that they have a right to have access to you. And so it's also something that you need to structure and perhaps maybe find a particular day where you can give audience. I mean, a particular day and particular time that you can give audience to people like that, because it is also important. You need to manage that as well. And just that you need to structure in such a way that it doesn't affect the work, because the most important thing is the work. And if you look at the state of COCOBOD, I mean, you take over a company that has a negative equity and is heavily indebted, and has a lot of issues that needs to be dealt with. So what it means is that the task is quite Herculean, and you need to devote a lot of time into delivering on that. And so you must also try and balance it so that these things do not become a distraction to the job. But it's also something that you must find a way of managing. So you manage it. The truth is that you can't do everything, and you should not even attempt to do everything. You do not have the capacity, whether it is physical, spiritual, or financial. You don't. So you can deal with what you can deal. There are some that might be pieces of advice. There are some that you might have to show them elsewhere. There are some that you will be able to deal with. And so you need to try and identify all this and do what you can do. You can't do every single thing. I am not scared of people saying negative things about me. I mean, to the extent that my conscience is right. And I know that I could not help because I couldn't help. Sometimes when people approach you or they contact you, at the back of their minds, they think that they are the only persons who are contacting you. But there are probably 100 or 1,000 more people with the same thing. I won't be able to do for everybody. I'll do for those I can. For others, I'll not be able to do it. And unfortunately, some might be disappointed, some might get excited, but the most important thing is that it is also an area or a situation that you must find a way of dealing with. That's it.
Right, but it's a tough one, isn't it? And, we can only wish you well. Now let's get to the main business of the day and for which reason you're here. I mean, what we've just said are peripheral issues, but it's important depending on how you look at it. So now you have a new life. I mean, I'm talking about a professional life. Now you're with COCOBOD. Now, under normal circumstances, I'm not one of those who takes to ask about what is your mandate and so on, especially if it's not a paid-for interview, structured. This one is not. This one, we invited you and you're here. But I'm going to ask you this question because at some point in the conversation, you bring it up in terms of what your core mandate is and what the new in terms of the broadening of the scope. Okay. When we say Ghana Cocoa Board, who are you? What do you do?
Okay, so you're the regulator of the cocoa industry. Okay. And so you basically regulate the entire value chain. So you have the pre-harvest and post-harvest. I mean, you also deal with the formulation of policies, I mean, in tandem with the supervising ministry, which is currently the Ministry of Finance. So we're basically a regulator. We're supposed to regulate in such a way that we can create value for the entire chain. COCOBOD itself, I always say that with the exception of acquisition of land, largely, and then provision of labor, largely, COCOBOD virtually does everything in the value chain. So even in determining where you can grow cocoa, you rely on COCOBOD because it is COCOBOD that has the land suitability map, which was created by Cocoa Research Institute, ATAFO, which is one of the divisions of COCOBOD. You know, so the land suitability map tells you where you can grow cocoa as far as Ghana is concerned. And maybe I'll send you the map one of these days, you can put it there. So it's just the Ghana map, and then you have the color codes, and it shows you all that. So that is a guide that in case you want to get into cocoa, that's a guide. So you don't just go and acquire land anywhere only to find out that it is not suitable for cocoa. Cocoa cannot be grown everywhere. And so you need to be guided. Cocoa Research Institute has also been there from the 30s. We came up as a result of the swollen shoot virus disease, but it's moved into doing research in many, many, many things. So although COCOBOD currently is dealing with cocoa and to a lesser extent coffee, the Cocoa Research Institute deals with cashew, with shea, with cola, and I think there are two more, you know, and we've decided to leave it that way because that's also our contribution as far as research in agriculture is concerned. So Cocoa Research Institute, that's beyond cocoa and coffee. And so all those seedlings, all those new variety of seedlings and others, they are all developed from Creek.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, for example, today, if you plant cocoa, it could fruit in between 18 months to 22 months. Not the 4 or 5 years of before, you know. And this is all because of the work of the researchers over the years at Cocoa Research Institute. So, I mean, we have close to 50 scientists working there. Then you have the seed production division, which actually does all the nursery. So the seedlings, the nurseries, they do that and provide millions of seedlings, which are given to farmers to plant. You know, then you have the Cocoa Health and Extension Division, which does all the extension services, the issue of how to take care of the farms and all that. So the extension officers and all the people, technical assistants and all that, that's the Cocoa Health and Extension Division. They work with the farmers to ensure that once the seeds are provided by SPD, Chair then takes over to ensure that everything is done according to right agronomic practices, you know, up until harvest. Then you have the quality control company, which is also a wholly owned subsidiary of COCOBOD, which does the grading and sealing to ensure that the quality is right, the quantity is right, is sealed properly. And then we have the haulers who come in and do the haulage, let's say from the farm gate to our takeover centers, and from the takeover centers to the ports for shipment. Then you have the Cocoa Marketing Company, also a wholly owned subsidiary of COCOBOD, that does the warehousing, the shipping, and the marketing. So for CMC, Cocoa Marketing Company, we have Ghana, and then we have the Cocoa Marketing Company UK, which is our London office, you know, and they are responsible for the warehousing, the shipping, and the marketing of both the beans, semi-finished and finished products. You know, COCOBOD also has interest in some of the processing companies. So currently, we have about 80%, we own about 80% of Cocoa Processing Company, the famous Golden Tree Chocolate, the producers of that. And then we also have...
In fact, you actually donated some to the people of Palestine just recently.
Yes, so the government of Ghana, through His Excellency the President, did that, but it is our products that the government of Ghana donated to the people of Palestine. And then and then we also have about 40% currently, but I think that it should go up in WAMCO in Takrady, West Africa Mills Company.
I see.
Yes. So that's the size of COCOBOD, and this is what COCOBOD does. So we have pre-harvest and then post-harvest. So like I said, apart from the acquisition of land, which COCOBOD currently does not do, and then the provision of labor on the farms, COCOBOD does virtually everything in the value chain, you know. And then you also have, so even in processing, we have a presence, as I've indicated with those two companies, you know. So this really is what COCOBOD does. Yes.
Wow. That's a massive, you know, role that you find yourself in. Now, you were appointed somewhere in January. 21st, right? January, yes. I think it's only legitimate that I ask you. So, since you assumed office, what have you been up to?
So, first of all, to try and understand the place, one, and two, to also understand what the situation was. We had read a lot, we had heard a lot, but then I needed to find out what the exact situation was, because it's only with that knowledge that I'll be able to lead a team to find a way out of the situation. So we spend a lot of time off-site, on-site, trying to find out what our status is, the state of affairs at COCOBOD. And then once we were clear in our minds about what the extent of the situation was, we then had to now deal with how we were going to turn things around. I mean, initially, I think that by the end of the 3rd month, we were pretty sure that we had a pathway, you know. And then something significant started happening, which had to do with the exchange rate. Because in all our financial modeling, we had used 15 cedis, and we thought that that was quite modest. I mean, in the Fourth Republic, must stand to be corrected, I have never seen an era where you've had the cedi make the kind of gains that we've seen. And so you would see successive governments go into a comparison of, or a comparative analysis of the depreciation of the cedi under my tenure was better than yours. You know, there is no discussion about appreciation. It is only the level of depreciation. So the argument is that during your tenure, I depreciated 300%. During my tenure, it's 270, so I'm better than you. And so looking at the historical analysis of the performance of the cedi, nobody expected that, in fact, you would have the cedi be the way that it is. And so we decided to use 15 cedis, although in November when the 24-25 price was fixed, 16 cedis was used as the exchange rate. So we decided to use 15, believing that we're being conservative, you know, and then only for us to see a certain shift, you know. So I went to the finance minister and I was like, you are throwing all my projections overboard. He says, please work with 12. Work with 12. I said, okay, fine. So came back, got a team. I said, look, we need to redo our model. And so let's input 12 and see. And it was huge, because I'll give you one example to buttress the effect. So if we expect to make, let's say, $4 billion of sales within a season of sales. Now, when you have 5 cedis off the exchange rate, because you see, we are an exporter, and so cocoa or even the finished products are priced in dollars and are sold in US dollars. Okay. Now, when the money gets to Ghana, the central bank gives us cedis on the basis of the exchange rate by the central bank, but it is sold in US dollars. Okay. Now, so when you calculate your revenues, it is the FOB, which is in US dollars, multiplied by the exchange rate.
Right.
So if you use an exchange rate of 15 and the exchange rate drops to, let's say 10, what it means is that you have 5 cedis off every dollar. And so if you're projecting to do sales of say 4 billion US dollars, that's 20 billion cedis off your revenue. That's no joke.
Fact.
That's no joke. It's 20 billion cedis off your revenue. That's the implication. So obviously, if you've done your analysis and you've done your projections, and you believe that, look, I'm using, say, 15 cedis, and I even think that 15 cedis is conservative because I met 16, and I want to allow some space as far as my modeling is concerned, so that in case there's just some stability or whatever, I still can accommodate that. So let me take a conservative figure of 15 and use that as your projection. And that 15 then tells you that, look, maybe year 1, you'll be able to retire X% of your debt. Year 2, Y. Year 3, Z. And so maybe by the 4th year, you'll be able to clear the debts there. Whilst doing that, you also expect that with the revenues that are coming, you can also keep your budget quite tight and not and manage your expenditure and make sure that you don't add to the debt over the period. And so you then get excited believing that, look, in about 4 years, I can be able to wipe off the debts. I can be able to turn this thing around. I can be able to have an efficient and effective company and industry in place. Now, when you have these huge margins off your projections, obviously, it throws everything out of gear. And it means that you need to now come back and remodel, try and look at various assumptions and all that. And it's not being easy. And that's what we have been working on.
At the same time, you do not want the farmers to take a hit.
Yes, so you would see that, you see, it's funny, this country, and I always say that it always gets funny when people, you see, there are times that people speak, and on the basis of who they are and what they are, you pardon what they say. The others that you can't pardon, and that is why it is said that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so if I listen to you, Moro, I have a certain expectation of what you should say,
right,
how you should analyze things, what you should communicate. I don't expect you to speak like somebody else who perhaps doesn't have the level of education, exposure, and knowledge that you have. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I get the point.
Okay. So when you sit back and you listen to some of the things that are going on, and you realize that people fail or people deliberately decide that they would not even appreciate the variables that are considered in arriving at this pricing. And it is not difficult, it's very simple.
Before we get there, this is a very important point you're making, but before we get there, I think it's important, as you said, to bring the viewers, or for that matter, our audience or Ghanaians, up to speed on what you inherited and what you've been doing with that inheritance that was bequeathed to you. And I'm happy you said you went there, the first thing you did was to analyze the situation and acquaint yourself with, yes, you've read and so on and so forth, but you now needed to experience it, more or less, for want of a better word. And you talked about the fact that whilst doing that, you then had our Forex dancing, But before you move to the issue of why you are pricing cocoa beans at this price, and what modeling or what the basis for the computation, I still am very much interested in knowing, because you see, at the end of the day, it would help Ghanaians to appreciate why we're where we are today, even with the pricing. Did you get the point I'm making?
Yes, I do.
So I'm saying that please spend a bit of time, maybe another 5-10 minutes, in telling us what you inherited.
All right.
So we can get to where we are now.
So thank you, Moro. So first of all, I'd earlier indicated that COCOBOD had a negative equity.
What does that mean?
Okay, so COCOBOD's liabilities were far in excess
of its assets.
So by about 1.4 billion.
Oh.
And so
dollar.
CDs.
Okay.
Technically speaking, it's
insolvent.
It's insolvent.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, it's insolvent. So it's an insolvent company.
Right.
So that's the first thing. Mm-hmm. 2, it's a company that had debts of close to 33 billion, 32 point, I think about 4 billion CDs. Okay. Now, I need to explain something with the debt. COCOBOD had an exposure of 21 billion CDs with respect to just cocoa roads. Now, people tend to confuse it. They think that the 32.4 billion includes the 21 billion. No. The 21 billion CDs has to do with contracts, road contracts that COCOBOD has signed. Now, in this 32.4 billion, you have 4.4 billion of cocoa roads debt. 4.4 billion. So this 4.4 billion has to do with works that have been completed and certificates issued, which were sitting at the cash office of COCOBOD. So these are certificates raised and certified by the consultants, which were at our cash office. That's 4.4 billion. So the 32.4 billion includes only 4.4 billion of certificates raised and certified sitting at the cash office of COCOBOD. What it means is that you have an additional about 17 billion or so that you have not had certificates raised yet. But these are contracts that have been signed by COCOBOD. Don't forget that COCOBOD is not one of the road agencies as far as the Ministry of Roads is concerned. The Ministry of Roads itself and all its agencies have an exposure of 67 billion, which they are crying over. So Ministry of Roads, with all its highways, feeder roads, urban roads, and all that, they are crying over an exposure of 67 billion. And COCOBOD had an exposure of 21 billion on roads. Okay. Now, there was also something which is at the heart of pricing, what we are able to pay the farmer and all other stakeholders. And that is because in all the talk, when the November producer price was announced, and all the talk about the farmer should get A, the farmer should get B, the farmer is being cheated and all that, apparently there was something significant that had happened that the rest of us outside COCOBOD or outside the high echelon of COCOBOD did not know, because there were people at COCOBOD who didn't know. When I went around speaking with the workers and all that and explaining the state of the company and the industry to them, many of them didn't know about this. It is something that was first spoken of by His Excellency the President in the State of the Nation address. And that has to do with a rollover of 333,767 tons of cocoa.
Please
333,767 tons of cocoa.
Wow.
Which was sold in the 2023-2024 year at $2,600 a ton. But was not delivered.
How?
Yes. COCOBOD was unable to deliver.
And yet the monies had been collected.
The contracts have been signed.
Signed?
Yes. For the 23-24 season. You know, those were the contracts that were signed to do the syndicated loan.
Yes.
And 333,767 tons of that cocoa for 23-24 were not supplied by COCOBOD.
Because
there was no cocoa.
Oh, okay.
Because there was no cocoa.
So what's signed when there's no cocoa?
How did COCOBOD arrive at that estimation of yields, expected yields, and ask cocoa marketing company to go and sign contracts for that? So we did not supply, COCOBOD did not supply 333,767. Wow. that it has signed contracts and sold for $2,600. So in 24-25, COCOBOD had to start supplying these contracts that we call low price contracts.
Because a backlog.
Yes. So the price of cocoa had gone up. That's when it went into the 10,000s, the 9,000s, at a point maybe 12,000 and all that. Mm-hmm. But you had 333,767 that you had to supply from your 2024-2025 stock. So while the farmer was producing for you, and the price was, let's say, on the average around 8,000 or 8,500, you were using that cocoa to service cocoa that you sold for 2,600 and could not deliver. So that is how come for the year 24-25, the FOB that COCOBOD declared was $4,850. Mm-hmm. Underline that. $4,850 mm-hmm. for the 24-25 season. Mm-hmm. It is out of this $4,850 that the government, the MPP government, then gave the farmer share as $3,100, okay, which was 63.9% of the FOB of $4,850 that was declared. Mm-hmm. Now, mind you, cocoa prices were higher then than today.
True.
They were higher then than today. You can check.
Right.
Yet, the FOB that COCOBOD and the government of Ghana declared, upon which they gave the farmer a share, was $4,850.
Which is even less than 50%.
$4,850. Now, this is what happened.
Yes.
You know, because the issue of the rollover wasn't made public, the Parliamentary Committee on Agriculture and Cocoa and Water, they didn't know. The Finance Committee of Parliament didn't know. Because, you see, once you're going to supply a part of the cocoa at 2,600 and another part as, let's say, 6,600 or 7,000, you will do what is called a weighted average. Because it is not all the cocoa which is going for that price that people read about, or the average that you've done for the coming season.
Which is past and present.
Yes, the average that you've done. Average. So let's say for 25-26, you are looking at, let's say, from August 7th to, let's say, July 31. So what is the average? What do you think will be the average, your forecast, the average price for cocoa for that period?
Right.
And then the central bank will give you an average for the exchange rate. And then you determine a percentage of the FOB for the farmer. And then once you've determined the farmer's FOB, the farmer's share, you multiply that by the exchange rate, the average that the central bank has given you, and that gives you the producer price. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I get it.
So even though the prices were higher then, you now have to look at what will my yields be for the year. So if you're expecting, let's say, 600,000, how much of the 600,000 will go for 2,600?
Yeah.
And how many will go for, let's say, 6,600 or 7,000 or 8,000? And then you strike a weighted average, and that becomes your FOB.
Right.
So the FOB of 4,850 was because of this huge rollover of 333,767 tons sold at 2,600. And that is what was hidden from everybody. Because if the prices were better when we're fixing 24-25 than today, how is it that today COCOBOD is able to fix an FOB of $7,200? And last year when the prices were better, the government and COCOBOD could only fix 4,850. There must be an answer.
Absolutely.
There must be an answer. Because if the prices were better last year, the FOB should be better.
Absolutely.
So how come last year the FOB was 4,850? And this year, the FOB is 7.2. But it's because we sold cocoa that we didn't have. And we sold it for 2,600. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And they did not tell anybody about this. I discovered it when I got to COCOBOD and we had off-site meetings. That's when I saw the rollovers.
But,
so as I speak with you, for 24-25, we've been able to clear about 230,000 tons.
Out of the 333,000.
Yes, we've been able to clear a little over 230,000. So we are carrying forward another 100,000 or so of that. And that is what has also affected the weighted average. Yes. What it means is that even for this year, you are a journalist.
Wow.
I sat in this chair from Tuesday to Friday.
Yes.
I never heard about rollover.
Oh, same here.
I never heard about how this had impacted. In fact, when some of the guys in the NDC were saying that the farmer was being cheated and that the farmer deserved better, and they were looking at global prices and using that as an argument, did you ever hear COCOBOD say that, yes, we hear you, that is the truth. However, we have a situation. We signed contracts at 2,600 and couldn't deliver 333,767 tons. And so we now have to use the high price cocoa for 24-25 to also service that. And therefore, you must use the 2.6 as against the high price to arrive at a weighted average. That is why we are not able to give the farmer what you see out there. Did you ever hear anybody tell you that?
How about those who also say that this talk about rollovers is not an entirely new issue, and that in 2016, when the NPP were taking over from the first that Mahama won, the same issue about rollover came up? How do you respond to that?
Okay, so rollovers really won't be strange.
Yes.
But one, you look at the quantum.
Okay.
And two, you look at the impact.
Right.
The 2016-2017 one we were talking about was about 50,000.
Right.
This is the interesting thing that happened. So, and they even made noise about this, especially against Dr. Puni.
So it's not 200,000?
No.
It's 50,000?
It's about 50,000.
Okay.
Now, this is what happened. The prices that those contracts were signed at were better than the prices of the cocoa that was used to service them. So in that case, we used lower price cocoa to service those ones. So we made a gain.
Do you have the data? Do you have the figures?
I can give you that. I can give you
the 2016 figures.
I can give you that. It's
public knowledge.
Yes,
That's
it's
fine.
not.
That's
I dare anybody.
Okay.
The cocoa that was used to service the about 50,000 rollover was priced lower than the contracts for the rollover.
So then that's your gain.
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
That is what happened.
So it's a non-issue actually. Let's move. Let's move forward.
In this case, you are talking about 333,767 tons. And the difference in the value, you are talking about somewhere around 6,000. Do the math.
Wow.
Do the math.
It's huge.
And so my point is that when people were speaking about, oh, the farmer deserved better, when the 24-25 price came up,
yes,
the farmer deserved better, the farmer deserved better. They did not know that this was the reason why. In fact, nobody even knew that the declared FOB was 4,850. Yeah. And COCOBOD, you can go and check the press statement or the press release for that particular year announcing the new producer price and see whether you find the 4,850 as the declared FOB there. In this current statement by the minister, you see the 7,200. It's there. It's in the statement.
Did it come up at transition?
Well, I wasn't part of the transition, but speaking to those in the transition, they're saying that as expressly stated, it didn't come up. I'm told that it was marked in some figures from 2017. So if you do an analysis of from 2017 to 2024, you might be able to see a certain discrepancy. But my point is that for such a very serious matter, it ought to be a standalone. I look at the handing over notes to me and I see some of the things that have been treated as standalone. They are nowhere hundredth of what a rollover is. But the point I'm just making is that, the point I'm making to you is that $4,850 was the declared FOB. At the time when cocoa prices were higher than today, there was a reason for that. Why was that reason not made known?
Question for the
Are you aware that for 6 quarters, COCOBOD did not provide financials to SIGA? 6 quarters, 1.5 years. They'll provide a operational report, but not a financial. And unfortunately, I have not seen any correspondence from SIGA then, really on COCOBOD's neck to provide those financials.
I'm told that has changed under Professor White.
Professor White is on my phone and my inbox. The documents come, the documents get there, there is something missing. He's immediately on the phone. His officers are on the phone. When the officers get on the phone and I'm sure that they don't get a response, they escalate it to him. He comes back, bro, this document, this, that. Just for the 4 months or so. But I'm telling you, for 6 quarters, COCOBOD did not submit financials to SIGA. What was anybody hiding? So you had people who were in parliament. You had relevant committees in parliament. They didn't have this information. Now, this is information that was at the heart of our earnings from cocoa. That was at the heart of what the farmer was going to earn. That was at the heart of how this industry was going to thrive. So this is what happened.
Interesting. Back to the issue about what you inherited. Again, we'll move on from there because we now need to talk about what currently is happening. So you talked about inheriting more like a moribund, an insolvent company. You talked about the pricing, big problem with the pricing. Then you also discovered that there were rollovers. What else have you discovered? Because I saw the video of some sacks, jute sacks that were, that's what I'm asking about. What else inherited?
When you take the issue of procurement, for example,
okay.
When I assumed office in those same presentations, so from the procurement department, they indicated that we had close to 200 containers of agrochemicals and jute sacks that are supposed to be at the ports and had not been cleared for over a 3-year period. And so these things were there, had not been cleared, and COCOBOD was still procuring. So if you take the jute sacks, for instance, tomorrow, as I speak with you today, COCOBOD is made available enough jute sacks and twines for the 25-26 season. But guess what? None of the jute sacks at the ports, about 114,000 on paper, about 114,000, has been cleared. None. We are still trying to locate the containers. I think about 2-3 weeks ago, Customs gave us permission to go open about 5. They didn't find those 5 containers, so we are still on. The NIB, formerly BNI, is also on those cases. Now, so about 114,000 of these jute sacks, which they kept importing and not clearing, are there. So they import the jute sacks, they are unable to clear them, but they import again. And they are unable to clear them, and they import again. Meanwhile, we had over 70,000 in our stores. When they were leaving in December, they issued an irrevocable letter of credit, $48 million on our Ghana International Bank account for another 80,000 bales of jute sacks.
Just this December?
Just this December. When on paper, there was about 114,000 that has not been cleared at the ports. There are over 70,000 in our stores. But they issued an irrevocable letter of credit for $48 million in December 2024 for another 80,000. Now, Moro, this 114,000, we have not seen them yet. This 80,000, I've seen some of the bill of lading, so they've started arriving. But we have not taken custody of them yet.
Okay.
However, for 25-26, we are relying on what is in the stores to go through the season. So why were they importing these juice sacks year after year, not clearing them, but still importing and issuing irrevocable letters of credit for them? So once the supplier is able to show bill of ladings to the extent that they've supplied everything, CIF, to the Tema port, they are done. The bank is obliged to pay them the money. And that is how it has been. So on those 114,000, we don't owe the supplier. He has delivered at Tema port, he has taken his money. On the 80,000, when he issues the last bill of lading, Ghana International Bank will release the 48 million to him. Now, this is 25-26. And we are not relying on this 114,000, whether they are still there or not. The agencies are checking, we'll find out. Plus the 80,000. But we still have enough in the stores to deal with 25-26 season. So what went into the procurement? And why would any managers of an entity be importing things, not clearing them, and importing more? To the extent that even when over a 3-year period, you have not been able to clear 114,000 at the port. December of 2024, you issue 48 million US dollars, irrevocable letter of credit for another 80,000. For what? For what?
Are those people who did what they did, are they being queried over these decisions?
Well, I need to focus on my job.
Okay.
There are agencies
that are dealing with that.
that are dealing with those things. Anytime the agencies write to us, they want information, we release the information. So BNI, NIB, I know is working on the issue of some of the containers. Mm-hmm. The Special Prosecutor's Office wrote to us asking for some documents we have provided. IOCO wrote to us asking for some information. We have provided that. The Auditor General is doing a special audit from January 2017 to January 2025. They're actually there. They've issued their first set of queries. I have put cover letters on these queries to those who were in charge at the time to provide the answers to these queries. I'm here to check with the office if the responses have come. And so I'm doing my job. The agencies that are responsible for dealing with these issues would also do theirs.
All right. I guess that speaking about doing your job, maybe we cannot, spend the whole day talking about the problems, because it looks like the problems are many. Now, speaking about doing your job, we had the news yesterday by the finance minister where he made a big announcement that government has increased the price of cocoa beans paid to cocoa farmers from $49,600, which is $3,100 per ton, to $51,660, representing $5,040 per ton. Now, we're told this means that the price per kilogram bag of cocoa beans has also increased from last year's $3,100 to $3,228.75, which is off 4.7% over the previous price. What went into the computation of the latest figures? Educate us, Doc.
So we had to do, like I said, an average forecast of the price for the period. And then we had to factor in the rollover, the remaining rollover of about 100,000. And then once we did that, we then came up with a weighted average. And so the weighted average then was what was used to then determine the president's promise of 70% to the farmers. So we had a weighted average of $7,200. And like I said, but for accounting for about 100,000 of the 2,600, the weighted average would have gone up higher. But because we had to factor that in, because we will supply, we would use 26 beans to supply the about 100,000. And so you need to factor that into the pricing. And so that is what brought our weighted average to 7.2. Let me repeat again that 24-25, the FOB that was declared, the weighted average was 4,850, 4,850. This year is 7,200. So it is out of the 7,200 that we then determined the 70%, which is the pledge in the NDC manifesto and the promise that the president made to the farmers and what he repeated during his tour recently. And so that is what came to the 5,040. So you have a situation where 24-25 it was $3,100 and then for 25-26 it's 5,040 US. That's close to 200, close to 2,000 US more. Now, there's also something significant that happened prior to this. The $3,100, when the exchange rate fell to an average of about 10, so let's say 10.25, an average, the cocoa farmer, on the basis of the 3,100, that was fixed for 24-25, we should have been paying the farmer 1,986 cedis a bag, 1,986 cedis a bag, and 31,775 cedis a ton.
Right.
That is what COCOBOD should have instructed the LBCs to pay the farmers for the cocoa that they purchase.
Based on the 10.25?
Yes, because how the rate is determined on the basis of the FOB, the farmer share of FOB, which is in US dollars, multiplied by the exchange rate. Now, Moro, let me ask you a question. Is the dollar at 10.25 better for the Ghanaian or worse for the Ghanaian?
It depends on where you stand. I mean, if you're an exporter, you may cry. Even though, I must admit that at the end of the day, you must also look at your purchasing power.
So I'm saying that generally.
So no, but generally it's good for Ghana.
Yes.
Yes,
I mean, is a stronger currency better or not?
Of course. It's better for Ghanaians.
Okay.
Yes.
So, because when I hear some of the arguments, it is as if a stronger currency is not good for Ghana.
Right.
You can't eat your cake and have it. You cannot eat your cake and have it. Something must give. So I'm saying that people are making it look as if $5,040 is worse than $3,100. Because if we're going by the $3,100, price per bag will be $1,986. And in fact, from April, that is what we should have been giving the farmer.
Yeah.
1,986 a bag. Is His Excellency the President who stepped in and said that no. Continue to pay the farmer the 3,100 a bag and the 49,600 a ton. So for me as COCOBOD, I did analysis and showed. So the farmer share was 63.9%. 63.9%. And the rest of the stakeholders then had 36.1%. So here you are talking about the buyer's margin, the haulers, the grading and sealing, the warehousing and shipping, marketing. You're talking about farmer support and all that. That is all what was the 36.1%. Now, by virtue of the decision by His Excellency the President not to allow us to pay the farmer 1,986 per bag, which is what the 3,100 was when the exchange rate, the Ghana cedi, improved. The farmer share moved from 63.9% to 99.80%. And the 36.1% shrank to 0.20%.
Whoa.
So when I meet stakeholders, what I tell them is that we don't even have enough to buy water. And so government was actually subsidizing the farmer for about 1,114 cedis, if my math is right. 1,114 cedis per bag.
Yeah.
For all that period. Because per the 3-1, 1,986 is what should have gone to the farmer. So there was a subsidy of 1,114 cedis on every bag until the 24-25 season ended on the 24th of July. And now the farmer share has moved from $3,100 to $5,040, even though the prices in 24 were higher than the prices today.
Yeah.
and of course the average for the season. Although that was higher. We're declaring an FOB of 7.2 as against 4,850 which was declared, and 5,040 for the farmer instead of the 3,100. By virtue of a stronger currency, that 5,040 then translates to the 51,000 something cities, and then the 3,228 for a bag. But the truth is that the bag should be 1,986. Going by the exchange rate.
I get it.
From April, it should be 1,986. So we should be looking at from 1,986 to 3,228.
Yes.
And not 3,1 to 3,228. It remained 3,1 because His Excellency the President took a decision to subsidize the cocoa farmer at the expense of all the margins. And in fact, let me also applaud all the stakeholders, because for us to be able to give the farmer 70%, all the stakeholders, the LBCs, the transporters, that's the hauliers, everybody else, quality control, the grading and sealing, warehousing, marketing, everybody, and COCOBOD itself, all the stakeholders agreed to remain on the same fees and margins of 24-25.
Which is a sacrifice.
Because if we had done any adjustments, the farmer will not be able to get a 70%.
And then you would have to find
other
ways or other
so everybody at the table, at the technical committee meeting, the technical committee of the PPRC, where you have 4 farmers, you have the transporters, you have the license buying companies, you have ISE, Institute of Statistical Research, you have Bank of Ghana, you have the Ministry of Finance, everybody there. That is where you look at all the variables, and then the analysis is done and the decision is taken, which will be the recommendation to the PPRC.
Okay.
And the PPRC is the one that the minister chairs, and I'm a member. Okay. But the recommendation comes from the technical committee. They meet first, and they will look at all the variables, and on the basis of that, they do they make a recommendation to the PPRC. So all these stakeholders decided that they will make a sacrifice and stick to the margins that they were all entitled to in 24-25. So that we will be able to get the farmer the 70%. With a proviso that, if things were to improve, and I put improve in inverted commas, because improve might mean that the exchange rate goes to, let's say, 12.
Right.
And then on the basis of that, you say that you can do a little adjustment. Yes. Or maybe the price remains the same and your production goes to maybe 800,000. Then you can say that on the basis of this huge gap, we can do some adjustments for you who didn't take anything. But the truth of the matter is that everybody else, apart from the farmer, is on the same fee and margin as was in 24-25. It's only the farmer that has moved.
Let me ask you a question which, again, my job here, my role here is to play the devil's advocate. Whether I believe in it or not is another matter. How about those who say that at the end of the day, what does the farmer take home? Before you made this adjustment, the farmer was taking about 49,000 cedis. That's 64 kg. Now you've increased it to some 50-something thousand. What it means is that really and truly, the increment is some 100 and something, cedis increment. And so the farmer today, based on their layman's understanding of what should come to them at the end of the day, and also based on the comment that the finance ministers made in opposition, that farmer should be taking far more. And they don't care, really, whether the exchange rate is at 10.25, whether it's at 12, whether it's at 16, they don't care. What they care is what comes to them at the end of the day. How do you explain or how do you respond to people who say that?
You see, first of all, this position will be a very dishonest, disingenuous, and perhaps a reckless position to take. And I'll tell you something.
Okay.
You see, the fact that we refer to people as farmers does not mean that they lack the capacity to analyze and think. And I find it quite insulting when people create the impression that the farmers don't know or they don't understand. Those who try not to know and understand are those who monies have been spent on them to go to school. And for reasons known to themselves, decide that they will not know and understand. The truth of the matter is that the farmer, up until July 24, was earning the 49,600 because His Excellency the President decided that his government will subsidize. Because what the farmer should have been earning from the second quarter of this year was 31,775. That was the CD equivalent of the $3,100 that the farmer was giving for 24-25. The farmer took the 49,600 and 3,100 per bag up until the season ended because His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama decided that he will subsidize the farmer by 1,114 cedis per bag. But for that decision, the farmer would have been earning 1,986 per bag.
Yes.
So when anybody who claims or who the evidence shows has had education and has had exposure and is enlightened and intends to speak in the public space decides to do a comparison, the 10.25 as an exchange rate didn't start today. It's been an exchange rate since some 4 months ago. So when you decide to apply that, you should apply that by the 3-1 and tell yourself that from, say, April, the farmer should have been giving 1,986 cedis per bag. But His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama decided that no, I want to provide a subsidy for the remainder of the season. And so a subsidy of 1,114 cedis was what His Excellency the President provided to enable the farmer continue to enjoy the 3,100 cedis instead of 1,986 cedis. These are the facts. And so you don't do a comparison of 3,100 cedis to 3,220 something cedis. Those who make that comparison know what they are about. They know what they are doing. And it is up to you and I to let them understand that, look, school fees were not spent on you, and you do not hold certain positions to do these things. And people should stop insulting farmers.
Right.
Farmers are not daft. The farmers, many of them, are more knowledgeable than us. They are more strategic than us. At least, since I assumed office, I've been to all the cocoa regions in Ghana, strength over the US dollar. They know that. There are people who have decided that, yes, they will play mischief, they will get into the arena and all that. This issue of what somebody said previously, I asked you, who in this country, all the people in parliament, even those who served in government, how many of them knew that there was a rollover and that those rollovers were priced at 2,600? And that is what determined the weighted average of 24-25, 4,850. For which reason, although cocoa prices were higher then than now, the farmer was getting $3,100. And will anybody tell me that they prefer the CD to be 16 cedis than 10.25?
Maybe some people want.
So they should come out and say that.
Yes, maybe some people
that we prefer the CD to be 16 cedis than 10.25.
If you apply
that is 16, that is how Ghana will develop. They should tell us that.
Yes, because if you apply that 16 by this same $5,040, that's almost 800,000. That's what
80,600.
Yes.
If the exchange rate was 16, it would be 80,600.
Maybe some people.
So ask yourself. So that's why I asked you the question: is Ghana better off with a stronger currency or a weaker currency?
I think the answer is obvious.
Yes.
Let's look at some other things that you've done, Randy. So, we learned from the statement that you issued that you are reintroducing the free cocoa fertilizer program. Why? So,
under the NDC administration, the previous administration, John Mahama's administration, the fertilizer was for free. It was when the MPP took over that they decided that it won't be free. It will be subsidized, so the farmers must pay part.
50% is
Yes, and then they couldn't take the money. They couldn't take the money.
But Ken Ferrata mentioned a whopping 270 million, which was supposed to be allocated for the subsidies. And you're
I'm saying that what the farmers were supposed to pay.
And you know this
they
for a
couldn't.
fact.
Oh, but I am the chief executive of COCOBOD.
Wow.
I see the books. I see the books.
So there were no subsidies.
I'm saying that whatever they gave, the collection, they couldn't take it. And you also had an issue, you see, you also have an issue with the issue of application. There's a cost barrier.
Yes.
Will the cost barrier then affect the ability of some farmers to purchase in the quantities that are required in order to apply for the yields that are expected? So it's a cost-benefit analysis. So there's a government that takes the view that, look, no, if we want this level of yields, if we want this quality of the crop, because you see, we even have main crop and light crop, and it is really about the size of the bean. Now Ghana is having lesser number of light crop because of the improvement in agronomy and all that. So our government takes the view that no, I think that it will be better if I provide these things and I'm able to police the distribution and I'm able to ensure that the application is done. Because I have a certain objective, which is to ensure that I get certain yields at certain quality. So that's a decision for a government to make. And the government says that, look, when I was in power, this is what I did. I think it worked. There's a new regime. This new regime, this is what is creating. And don't forget that before the NDC did the manifesto, they went round and spoke to everybody. And so some of these things that you see is also as a result of feedback from what they got from the people in the value chain, especially the farmers.
Right.
So it is that feedback and the analysis of same which has led to some of the things that were put in the manifesto and which are being implemented.
So there's a policy shift. But then that also raises the more fundamental question of dealing with theft and smuggling. Because one of the reasons why I recall the previous administration said we'll subsidize was because people were stealing the fertilizers. They were being smuggled outside. In fact, remember the donkey scenario? Donkey carry fertilizers outside, and whether it was true, but we made
farmers and others in the cocoa value chain who are attending secondary school. Now, by virtue of free SHS, this thing was declared, has been declared redundant or moot. Yes, because the state is virtually taking care of everybody. All right. Now, I heard my friend Charles speak to something which they said was in their manifesto and all that about this tertiary thing. The board of COCOBOD, the previous administration, just before they left office, they took a decision that they were going to do the trust. So the COCOBOD scholarship thing is no longer a unit at COCOBOD as a result of that. So they decided that they were going to set up
a pension scheme?
No, an education trust.
Okay.
In view of this free SHS and the fact that there were no scholarships.
Right.
And what they said we were going to do was to build school structures in some of the deprived communities in cocoa growing areas.
Right.
That was the decision taken by COCOBOD and government of Ghana. So they set up a subcommittee of the board. I think that it was chaired by the then governor, Dr. Addison. But I think unfortunately they could never meet to actualize what the board has said. So the decision of the then government and COCOBOD was that they should focus on building school structures in deprived areas. Now, even under the scholarship scheme, COCOBOD was still doing structures. So it is not as if it was new.
Yeah.
When we were doing the secondary school, we were still building structures. Okay. But this was a decision that the government then took to do that. But it was never implemented. Then we came into office. So we decided to look at different things. And then also when I went around visiting the farmers and interacting with them, a lot of issues also came up.
Okay.
Then His Excellency the President then calls to say that, look, now we are taking care the state is taking care of the children of farmers and all that in secondary school. Now we also have the stress-free first year thing. I think that you guys should look at how you can support the works of cocoa farmers in tertiary institutions, because if they finish the free SHS, they would want to continue. And once the support is not at a secondary place, we think that you can extend it to a tertiary place. So I'm going to give you a year to come up with the modalities to implement a tertiary scholarship for the cocoa farmers. And so we have 25-26 to bring in whoever the consultants will be and all the others and put together the modalities. And then we can implement in for the 26-27 academic year. And so on the basis of what the work that we are going to do says, then we will know how the implementation is going to be about. So for 26-27, how is it going to start? What will be the modalities? Who qualifies? What's the criteria? How do we deal with the issues of abuse that many people have raised, occurred in the past and all that? All those things will inform the kind of structure that is put in place for this scheme. But the good thing is that His Excellency the President has given us 25-26. We have close to a year to put together whatever it takes, the policy and everything, to be able to ensure that we can start an implementation 26-27 academic year. So our work is cut out. We need to start working on that. And then once we are done, with the guidance of our sector minister, the Honorable Atufosin, and of course it might even go to cabinet, we'll be able to then come up with the final blueprint for implementation in September 2026.
Last year, there was a lot of talk about a pension scheme for cocoa farmers. The NPP touted it as one of the achievements that they've conceptualized, the whole idea, and plans were far advanced and so on and so forth. Talk us through where the status of that, as you have come to know.
There's no pension scheme for cocoa farmers. There's nothing. There's no pension scheme. I've seen the procurement of a consultant. I've also seen a budgetary provision for some money, but there's no pension scheme. Whether it is a pilot, there's no pilot, there's nothing. And when I asked the technical people there, they said, well, it hit a snag because the farmers did not accept the fact that they had to make a contribution to the scheme. And they thought that COCOBOD should take the entire load. And so my question was, what was the level of stakeholder engagement, for which reason certain pronouncements and announcements were made, which created the impression that there was a pension scheme in place for farmers. So there's nothing. We now have to engage, other people. Maybe we might even speak with the consultant that was engaged then to also find out a lot more. And then try and engage other people, bring in actuarial scientists and all that to help us understand the thing. Pension schemes are not things that you just speak about. You and I are on SNIT pension schemes. We know that it is structured in a certain way. You must contribute for a certain number of years. How much you contribute determines how much you get. There's the issue of your best 3 years and all that. Looking at the profile of the ages of farmers and all that, how is that kind of pension going to be structured and all that? Looking at how farmers' income comes in, we are paid maybe on a monthly or weekly basis, and there is a calculation and all that. So the issues in determining a pension scheme for farmers is not as easy as people want to put it. So it's something that we want to explore again. We want to engage again. We want to engage all the stakeholders. And then we'll be able to come up with a position, whether it is feasible or not. And then we can take it from there. But there is no pension scheme.
Yes. I see. This is revealing. But again, we understand that you are giving free insecticides, free spraying machines, free fungicides, free flower inducers to farmers. Why are you doing all of these?
It is to improve the yields. It's to improve the yields. It's to help with the agronomy practices. It's to make sure that we're dealing with both quantity and quality as far as the yields are concerned. the government believes, from a policy point of view, that this is how it can deliver on higher yields and of better quality. And we are implementing that.
Tell us about the cocoa traceability system. What is this idea?
Okay, so to put it simply, you'll be able to trace any bag of cocoa or any cocoa. You'll be able to trace from the farm gate where that cocoa was harvested, straight up to the port of shipment.
That's all.
So I'm saying simply.
Simply.
So if you take any bag of cocoa, you'll be able to trace it to Moro Audu's farm gate. That this is the source of the cocoa.
Oh, okay.
And the European Union has come up with deforestation regulations, which is called the EUDR. And it will take effect from the 31st of December. And so this traceability system is to ensure that we know that the cocoa is not coming from a farm that practices child labor or an area. It's not coming from as a result of deforestation, because these are things that Europe is strongly against. And so that's why it's called traceability. So you're able to track, you're able to trace. So, for example, if cocoa is, once the cocoa is graded and sealed, if it is smuggled from Ghana, you'll be able to trace that this cocoa is not from Togo, it's not from Cote d'Ivoire, it's from Ghana, to the extent that it's graded and sealed.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And so it gives an assurance to the European market that, in fact, the cocoa that they are importing is not a product of child labor, is not a product of deforestation, is not a product of all the things that they frown upon. And Europe is a destination for 60% of our cocoa exports. So it is extremely important that we are able to meet the deadline for this European Union deforestation regulations. Like I said, it's 31st December. We want to start with the opening of our season on Thursday.
Right.
And so we've done the dry runs with the top 8 LBCs. We've done with the other LBCs as well, just to be ready for it. This is the first time. There might be some hiccups. We don't expect things to be major, but then we'll be able to smoothen things as we go on. But we're ready. The European Union representatives and ambassadors and all that, they've seen what we've done. They have applauded us for where we've come so far. This is something that started from the previous administration, and we are continuing. And so we expect that we'll be ready. And by the time that the European Union starts the enforcement by 31st December, Ghana's cocoa should have no problems going to Europe.
And now to my next question, and my next question would explain to our viewers why I had to, from the beginning of the program, ask about the mandate or your core mandate is, and this question would explain that. So, as part of the 2026 budget, we're told that the Ghana COCOBOD Act of 1984, which is PNDCL 81, would also be amended to make it illegal for the board to deviate or stray from its core mandate to protect the cocoa industry. So if we're told, for emphasis, COCOBOD will no longer engage in what we call quasi-fiscal activities. Tell us a bit more about this.
So, I mean, a big example is the cocoa roads.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you go and expose yourself to the tune of 21 billion? You are not a road agency. Building of roads is not your core function. It's something that you do when either you make provision for it or when you've made some profits and you think that, look, you should contribute some to the development of some infrastructure in some cocoa areas, then you do that. But COCOBOD is not a road agency. That is not our primary role. So you cannot be doing 21 billion when you owe for beans. What is your primary function? You owe for that. You owe for agrochemicals. You owe for this. And you want to spend these monies on that. Listen, government has a responsibility in ensuring that the roads in the cocoa areas are motorable so that we can be able to evacuate the cocoa. It is up to us through the sector ministry to bring some of these things to the attention of the relevant ministry and to ensure that these roads are captured in the relevant budgets of these ministries, and to demonstrate that the inability of the country to do these roads has this implication as far as our export earnings are concerned.
Right.
And for that to be done, I hope you understand me.
I get it.
We cannot turn COCOBOD into one of the agencies under the Ministry of Roads. I hope you understand me.
Get it.
And it appears that something that started as additional support, something supplementary, then has turned out to become more of the primary focus of the entity.
Right.
To the extent that you go and sign road contract valued at 21 billion. With which money are you going to pay those monies? With which money? COCOBOD earns at most 6%. At most 6%. With all your overheads, with your staff of over 10,000, and all your overheads, which monies will you be able to set aside to finance road construction to the tune of 21 billion? What was going through the heads of people who took these decisions? And to decide that you even denominate these contracts in dollars under something called co-financing. So, really, common sense should tell you that don't do this. But you see, in this life, sometimes when you're given discretionary power and authority and you abuse it, then you are now treated as a robot, which is what the new act intends to do. That if you cannot apply common sense and use the discretion wisely in taking decisions, then we might as well legislate it. I hope you get what I'm saying.
Okay, I
yes,
totally understand.
we're just moving from something that ought to be commonsensical to something that will be legislated because we cannot trust the judicious use of discretionary power and authority by people who run the organization on the basis of the history of that organization.
Absolutely. So the 21 billion cedis, not dollars. So you've transferred these projects to.
So I'll tell you something, and I'm sure you remember when the IMF talk started.
Yes.
I'm sure you heard that COCOBOD, as part of the IMF program,
Yes.
COCOBOD was going to rationalize these road contracts and reduce the exposure from 21 billion to 6.7 billion. We all heard it.
Yeah,
I sat here, I discussed it with the panelists and all that. There's a huge relief. At least the 21 billion would then become 6.7 billion, which is manageable. It's part of the IMF program Ghana signed up to. I got into office almost 3 years after this IMF, we are signed up to this IMF thing. Over 2 years. Got into office, had this presentation by General Services. And then I saw 21 billion cocoa roads. So it struck me. And I was like, but is this not what under the IMF program COCOBOD was supposed to do a rationalization exercise to reduce it to 6.7 billion? Only to be told that, that was a desktop analysis which was presented to the IMF. We needed to follow up with the consultants to the field to go and actualize the desktop analysis that we've made. And this was never done for over 2 years, although it was part of the IMF program. So I asked, what is it that has prevented you? You've sat down in your offices. They put you in some hotel, you sat down, and you took the thing and said, this contract has not started, we can cancel it. This one is 5%, we can stop it. This one is double ceiling, we can make it single ceiling. This one is this, we can change it. And then when you did all that, you arrived at the possibility of rationalizing to 6.7 billion. But you needed to go to the field with the consultants to now go and actualize this on the field. To now go and certify that what you said is 5% is indeed 5%. What is 2% is indeed 2%. You can actually do this or you cannot do that. And for 2 years, although it was part of the IMF program, you have not done that. Why? They said, we owe the consultants. And without paying them some money, they were not going to go with us. So I said, who are these consultants and how much do you owe them? So, roads and highways, we owe them 120 million. Feeder roads, we owe them 80 million cedis. I said, okay. So how much did you need to give them in order for them to go through this exercise with you? So if we give highways 30 million cedis and give feeder roads 20 million cedis, we'll be able to. So I said, okay. So you, COCOBOD, you needed to spend 50 million cedis, not dollars, in order for consultants to accompany you to go to the field and go and actualize a desktop analysis you've done and presented to the IMF as part of the turnaround strategy for COCOBOD to reduce your exposure with respect to cocoa rose from 21 billion to 6.7 billion. You were going to shave off about 15 billion of your exposure. And you needed 50 million cedis to complete this exercise. And for 2 years, you didn't do this. Although it's part of the IMF program and part of your turnaround. But you are able to be importing, paying for $48 million worth of juice sacks that you don't clear. And you are paying road contractors huge monies and still signing contracts. And you are unable to do this 50 million. So I went to the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance then said, no, go and see your brother, Honorable Agoja. So I called the Honorable, we met. Quickly, within 1 week, we set up a meeting, the COCOBOD team and the Ministry of Roads team. At the Ministry of Roads, the Minister himself and his deputy, Honorable Sweeney, sat in the meeting throughout. And we had the technocrats from both sides discuss. We formed a joint team the same day. We gave them 3 weeks to go to the field and go and do the job. I got COCOBOD to release the monies to them. They went there, they completed the work, which says that we can do 6.9 billion. So that is what has come up now. We are in touch with the Ministry of Roads. Now, the Ministry of Finance has directed that all the ongoing works must go to the Ministry of Roads. The next leg is now to sit down with the Minister of Finance and deal with the issue of the 6.9 billion. How we're going to do that, because now we must engage the contractors and inform them that, look, these are the decisions that have been taken. For what we owe, this is how we'll be able to pay it over a period. So that is what is left to be done now. But what is clear from the minister's press release is that government's position is that focus on your core mandate. Don't veer into these things again. The ongoing projects, let it go to roads. Then now we'll come and look at how to deal with the rationalization, the 6.9 billion, how to deal with that. That's the next leg that we have to deal with.
What's the status of the stabilization fund?
There's no fund. There's
no
nothing.
Fund.
There's no. I didn't meet any money in any fund. Because the stabilization fund really is that in good times, you set money aside, so that in difficult times you can rely on them. I've not seen anything. There's nothing.
So what do you intend to do about it?
Well, now there's a mess we have to deal with, and that's what we're doing. Try to clear things and all that. Once we turn the company and the industry on a positive trajectory, we'll be able to set aside some monies for some of these things.
My understanding is that your financing model for now has changed. The syndicated loan idea, there's a new conversation. Well, what is it?
It's a bit difficult, but sometimes some truth has to be told. Ordinarily, this is not something that I would want to speak about in public. But the current financing model is not something that was thought out. It's not something that people said, we've created a new financing model for COCOBOD and all that. Look, I've told you 23, 24.
Yeah.
What happened? Mm. For the first time in the history of COCOBOD, COCOBOD has done syndication for 32 years. The 32nd year was 23, 24, which currently will be the last year for syndication. Mm-hmm. That year, for the first time in the history of COCOBOD, the season opened in September. The first tranche of the syndicated loan hit COCOBOD's account on the 22nd of December.
Why is that abnormal?
Because the monies come before the season starts. Okay. It is out of the syndicated loan that you create seed funds and give the seed fund to the LBCs to go and buy the cocoa on your behalf. So you open the season without no financing of the cocoa. So September, October, November, December, you had opened the season, but there was no money.
Can you guess why?
It is not a guess. It is because of the financial performance. The banks were monitoring. They were monitoring their contracts that you signed and sent to them that you were going to do 800,000 tons and all that. They didn't believe it. They didn't believe it. That is what led to the rollover. And true, at the end of the season, you couldn't deliver 333,000.
So you suffered a credibility crisis?
To the extent that for 24-25, and this is where the truth is, COCOBOD issued a request for proposal, which is how you start a syndication. So there's a request for proposal which is floated, and then the financial institutions respond to it. That's how the syndication starts. 24-25, COCOBOD issued a request for proposal. There was not a single response.
Wow.
For the first time in the history of COCOBOD, there was not a single response. So what happened was that you now have this global shortage of the bean. Cote d'Ivoire, as a result of CSSVD, had dropped by about 500,000. Ghana had dropped to about 250 to 300,000. You're talking about premium cocoa. There was global shortage everywhere. Now, mind you, the buyers had 333,000 tons at 2,600 with us. So, the guys at the cocoa marketing company, the traders, they then brought up the idea that, look, then let us get the buyers to finance the crop because they are interested in retrieving their 333.
Yes. Because they're also under pressure.
Yes, so they're under pressure from their clients.
Yes.
So it'll be easier to get them to finance the crop. So that whilst we are supplying their 333,000, they also buy some of the new crop.
Oh, okay.
That is what brought it 60-40. Oh. And because the guys also knew about the issues in COCOBOD, they brought out a 60-40 to say that, okay, when we buy the cocoa, we'll give you 60% first.
Okay.
If the LBCs confirm that you have given the 60% to them, then it will trigger your 40%. So if you look at the fact that the farmer was getting 63.9%, what it meant was that even if they gave you the other 40%, it didn't go to the LBCs, what will be outstanding will be 3.9%. So at least 60% will go to the LBC because you want to release that money to trigger the release of your 40. So that is what brought that financing mechanism. It's not as if somebody decided that enough of syndication, we are now going to think through a new model.
Yeah.
A request for proposal was issued and we were snubbed for the first time in the history of COCOBOD. So now, we are also able to continue that model this season because, one, our finances still are not in a good shape. Two, there is still 100,000 of the rollover at 2,600 to be delivered. Three, there's still global shortage of the bean. But we're also mindful of the fact that if by 25-26 we're able to supply all the bean, and everybody is trying to ramp up production, including Ghana, if global production increases and there are no rollovers again, will you be able to ask the buyer to finance the crop?
It'll be difficult.
Yes. So that is why the finance minister hinted that we are already in a discussion about a financing model moving forward. So we are also mindful of the fact that there's a possibility that this could be our last. Once we service the remainder of the rollover and once global production improves. Because the only reason why the buyer will be interested and will want to take up the financing cost in financing your crop is because, like they say in Chiniwakim.
Right. Okay. I have a lot of messages for you. I don't know how you're going to do this, but Idim Wahidin says hello. Neil Vanderpoel says hello. You know, Simon Ebony, you know, and Musa Mansa. All of them are asking questions, and I don't know how. Robert Coleman.
Mansa Musa in London.
Yes. Ask for Robert Coleman. I think I need to read Robert. He says, tell Randy that the stunned viewers of Good Morning Ghana miss him a lot, and will forever be grateful for leading such a solid program like Good Morning Ghana for us. We're proud of him, and we also have heard of the extraordinary leadership he's offering at COCOBOD. He should just be focused and purposeful, and he will transform the place by time his tenure ends. And, you know, he says your understanding of the cocoa sector is absolutely mind-blowing, and he's grateful to have you as a big brother. Doc, thank you so very much for your time. We have a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, time is not our best friend. And so we'd want to say a big thanks to you for joining us. And I think that we've had a very, very productive and a very interesting conversation. Thanks. And we can only wish you the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. And thanks to your management for the extra time.
Yes. You see, you are quite so powerful. My name is Howdy World. Thanks for watching Good Morning Ghana. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Bye-bye.